All right, this is Reginald Perryman with RegiusRealEstate.com, and I'm here with a special guest. Marcus, you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marcus Twyman. I'm with Opulent Realty Team. We are a full service property management and real estate sales office.
Okay, that's great. And how long have you been in property management?
I have been in property management for 5 years, but I've been in real estate in total for 15 years. And every time I
Oh.
say that, it just continues to resonate how old I am, I guess. I don't know. Or
Yeah, I know that feeling.
At first I thought I came in as being a part-time hobby like everybody else, like, oh, I'm gonna go in, flip a couple of houses, and I'm gonna be out. Yeah, it
Right.
turned into a full-time career for 15 years. I'm like, Jesus.
That's good. Yeah. So speaking of property management, because right now, I wanted to talk to actual people that have boots on the ground. So the media is telling us one thing, and you have all the experts on TV talking about real estate and what's going on in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And with you being in property management, we have a lot of investors and you have a lot of clients, and we also have tenants. And there's a lot of confusion about what's going on, especially here in the Detroit area.
Yes.
So first, I guess the biggest elephant in the room is, are tenants still paying rent?
Yes, tenants are still paying rent. Our office did offer them an incentive because,
Okay.
in this time of need, you have to be compassionate. I have read some of the things on Facebook, Instagram, where there were property managers, owners that sent out some nasty letters.
Mm-hmm.
So basically telling them, we all going through a hard time. Sorry to hear about it, but I still need my money. We're at the end of the day, everybody's human. Everybody wants a little bit of compassion. And this is something that has not happened in our generation, and you have to tread lightly.
Right.
Number one,
Right.
let's remember that Michigan is a consumer state. So
Mm-hmm.
what that means is that the consumer is always right until they're proven otherwise. So it's the
Right.
same in the system of the court. You are considered a slumlord until you prove yourself otherwise in court. So with that already against you, you might as well put the humanity part in it and just kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But all in all, what we offer was a discount from the beginning of April. So April 1st through the 5th, we were taking off a discount of up to $100. Of course, it was based upon the amount of rent, and each owner had to agree to what it was that they agreed to. Then the
Right.
second part of it was that, okay, maybe you could not make it from the 1st to the 5th. So we had a second part of it, which was from the 6th through the 10th, we will waive all the late fees and then still offer you a discount of whatever that is. So I'm gonna say up to $50.
Okay.
And it worked. As far as tenants were definitely relieved to know that we were offering them something. Some were like, well, I can't take advantage of the first option, but I'll definitely see you for the second. So I'm gonna say out of all of the accounts that I manage, no lie, about 90% of people have paid already. And the
Great.
other 10 that have not, were just saying, I'm in a position where I just cannot. But I still extended, well, when you can, give us a call and see if we can work something out.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a reason I wanted to do this interview on what's today, April 11th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because typically rent is due on the 1st of the month. And if we were having this interview on the 1st or the 5th, it would be hard to really track this data, right? So one of the things I like to do is have real data and real information. So that's good to know that you said approximately about 90% of your tenants have actually paid.
Yes.
That lets us know in the market and in the industry, there are people that are still able to do business and conduct business as normal. But again, you're still going to have a small percentage that are unfortunate, and we have to work with them. You mentioned that the owner has to comply. With you being in property management and you're working with different clients as far as your investor owners,
Mm-hmm.
So just explain a little bit. So is it that you have maybe one or two owners may want to give $100 discount, another owner may want to give a $50 discount? Is there a difference, or are you kind of just setting an amount across the board with all your investor clients?
Typically, I try to set an amount across the board. I mean, anything, if we go back to real estate law, we're supposed to offer the same thing to everybody.
Right,
But again, these are not my properties. I only manage for someone else or a company. So, but whatever it is for that specific portfolio, we had to offer for all of their tenants. See what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
So it wasn't just me making a decision. It was, here's an idea that I come up with. Mine was to offer $100 off the first through the fifth, because I figure, okay, 100 is an incentive for somebody to say, I will have an extra $100 in my pocket. Some people are like, well, that's a lot of money. Granted, it is, but I would rather, my basis was, would you rather have 90 to 95% of your money or zero?
Exactly.
That's exactly what would have happened if we'd have been like, oh, well, we don't offer you anything. So sorry, too bad, so sad. They'd be like, okay, great. Then I'll see you in May, you know, because they know more of the law than we actually do, because it gets to them first. I mean, they know way more. So it's like, okay, let's just try to work this out. But yes, it is a per portfolio conversation. So
Okay.
I started off with that. Some people pushed back and said, listen, I can't afford right now to offer that. So what can we do? I said, well, let's maybe do $75. So again, it was up to $100. It just depended upon the portfolio. But yes, we offered a discount. Each portfolio, each owner did participate, and we went forward from there.
That's great. So let me ask you this: so you have tenants that are, you have tenants that you're managing that are receiving like government assistance as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Okay, and are they having any problems with slowdown in payments being processed or anything like that?
I have not seen any problems with the slowdown in payments. The payments actually
Okay,
went out on time. The unfortunate part is that they didn't get delivered on time because of the fact that the U.S. Postal Service is having a little bit of problem, because they're out in the front lines every day, and some of the people took time off, so they're kind of short staffed. But with that, I mean, payments seem that they've been here on time for the most part.
right. Okay, shout out to all the postal workers that
Yes,
are still dealing with people on a daily basis, all the mail carriers that are
yes.
going door to door. You're getting this mail, you don't know where it came from.
Nope.
Um,
I'm a
and you
postal
guys
child.
just,
My mother worked for the post office for 30 years. She's still there carrying a route today. So she's out in the
wow.
field today.
Yeah, so shout out to all our postal workers, man. Um, so let me ask you this. So the other elephant in the room is eviction. So the courts are, closed, and they're saying that you can't send out eviction letters, right?
And that's
So
exactly what I was going to say. But go ahead, Reggie.
yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's say the lockdown is over and it is now July, and you have a tenant that is 2 or 3 months behind, versus a tenant that was behind before lockdown, and you were getting ready to start the eviction process. Just explain to us about the eviction process, because my understanding is technically a tenant is still obligated to pay. It's just that you can't serve them a notice. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the
Okay.
contract is still valid. They're still
Okay.
obligated to pay. Um, but at this moment, we cannot send out any type of notices for demand or collection of payment.
Correct.
So they won't hear from us, and we won't hear from them unless they pay. Um,
Okay.
until this um, order has been lifted and it's expired and they haven't extended it.
Right.
From my understanding, because it's new things that change every day, is that we, once the order has expired and we're able to send out the notices, we can send for the payments that are owed. So if they did not pay March, April, or May, unless it's over in June, then we can still send out the 7-day notice for all those payments.
Right.
But
Okay.
as of right now,
So
you cannot send out any type of notice of demands. You cannot, not even a text message besides, hey, how are you? How's your family? And kind of go from there. But you cannot demand any type of payment right now.
right. So you basically, all you're doing is sending a monthly statement, invoice, or whatever, to show them what's due, what's past due. are you seeing that, I think you mentioned it earlier, so are you guys waiving late fees, correct?
Correct.
In most cases, okay.
No, that's in
All
all
right,
cases right now. We're waiving the late fees.
okay.
Yeah,
Now,
I got all the owners uniform across the board for that.
okay. So you're one of the good property managers out
I
there, right?
try to be. Sometimes people get upset with me, but I try to be.
Hey, hey, man, I've been around some years, and I can tell you, your name is well respected. And
Thank you.
so yeah, because what I'm hearing, I'm hearing different things from people that are managing their properties themselves versus people that hire licensed property managers.
Correct.
I always encourage that you hire a licensed property manager. And now during times like this, a crisis, you need somebody that actually know the law and
Correct.
what's going on. Is that because at the end of the day, there's probably going to be some lawsuits at the
It
end
is.
of this because somebody mishandled a tenant without, the improper way of doing business. So,
Correct. And
um,
I don't take away from anybody. Um,
right,
I tell people, owners in general, all the time, the difference that my service, the only difference between mine and maybe somebody else's sometimes is having a broker's license in real estate. Okay, which
okay,
is required by the state of Michigan. If you're going to manage properties for somebody else for a fee, that is required for you to be a licensed real estate broker. But are there
wait,
people out here?
hold up. I need you to say that again because I have a lot of overseas investors, out of state investors, and they're coming to me to sell their properties, and they're saying, contact my property manager. And when I meet the property manager to go and inspect the property, it's just somebody, they're not licensed. And the reason they're selling is because a lot of times the person is collecting rent and not paying the owner. So just to clarify that, if someone is managing properties for a fee, they're supposed to have a real estate license, correct?
Let's take that back. Let's
Okay.
retract it. If somebody is managing a property for a fee, they must have a
Okay.
real estate license. They must have a real estate broker's license.
Right.
That's the state of Michigan law. They must
Okay.
have it. It's not maybe, possibly. You cannot be a salesperson and manage properties under the state of Michigan. You cannot have a salesperson's license. That's
Right.
in the book. That's black and white. Unless your broker is supervising you, but at that time, it's still a licensed broker that's
Right.
providing the license. Okay, so you're still acting as an agent. But yes,
Right.
you must be a licensed real estate broker to manage properties for a fee for someone
Right.
or entity. Yes.
That's
But are
correct.
there people out here that do it way better than I do? Absolutely. There's some people that do way better than I do. I'm not going to take that away from them. But all I'm just saying is that make sure you stay abreast of the laws that are happening. And most people who are licensed will do as such because you have a lot more on the line.
Right.
A lot of people and a lot of owners overseas, especially, love what I call the renegade um, property managers because they kind of can get away with it because they're not licensed. So they'll send out the notices, they'll send the text messages, they'll make sure they try to collect and be very aggressive towards people. But again, it doesn't get them anywhere, but possibly in court. And a lot of
Right.
times, when it comes to property managers that are unlicensed, they don't keep the correct accounting procedures as well. So that's another reason why kind of the money doesn't always go as planned. And I tell people all the time, working with someone that's licensed and organized can be a little bit more frustrating than somebody else because the way my company is set up, I'm running a business, which means because
Right.
you want money is not how it works. We still have to follow accounting practices and we still have to disperse funds accordingly because at the end of the year, you want your 1099 and all your information to be correct. So there's a process for that. And I get it. I really do. But with that
Right.
being said, yeah, you definitely should be licensed and you should definitely follow the law. Number one, it's a protection for yourself. Number two is your duty, especially if you're licensed, is to protect your client
Right.
from
And,
any
and
undue harm. And following the law would do that.
And also it protects the tenant, because now the tenant is dealing with someone, they know if they pay this person is obligated to pay the actual owner.
Correct.
And also there's some accounting, because the state is regulating your escrow accounts and things of that nature.
Correct.
So let me ask you this. So let's go back to, we talked about the eviction process. So someone's 3 months behind, and here it is July, and you can now go to court and possibly evict. But before you evict that tenant, what are your plans as far as someone that's maybe like 2 months behind, and they were laid off and they're trying to catch up? They may be paying, instead of $900 a month, they paid you $300 a month. What would your approach be in a situation, and are you dealing with it on a case by case? How are you guys handling that for people that need to catch up?
It's a case by case basis.
Okay.
First of all, communication is key with the tenants. Most people say, don't be their friend, which I agree. You don't want to be their friend, but you also have to educate. Okay, so what my approach is this, and anybody can do it. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, I understand you're going through a hard time. Can we have a conversation? About what? About your rental payments. Well, they say I don't have to pay. Well, I understand there's a lot of literature out there that says that you don't have to pay, but that's not correct. You should pay. You still have to pay because you're in a contract. Now, what we can do is, if you cannot pay anything right now, we can put a payment schedule together. And they're like, okay, let's see, what can you do? Well, I can do $200 a week. Are you sure you can maintain $200 a week? Well, right. Yes, I can. So let's get something in writing. So I'll create an agreement. We'll go through, we'll sign it, and we'll go from there. But I also inform them, because you are behind in rent and past due, I still have to follow the necessary protocol and send you a 7-day notice for the balance in which you owe. Whenever I send out their notices for the 7 day, I send out their ledger with it, so they'll know, okay, what am I being charged? Why am I being charged this fee? When was it applied? To answer some of the questions that they have, and for their records. So if we do have to, unfortunately, go to court, they'll have the same information that I present to the attorney that represents us. Okay, so everybody be on the same page. There's no different numbers. It's all the same printout. It's easy to read. It's not handwritten. It's print, and it's sent out. But I educate them. I say, you will get a notice in the mail once this season opens up, where we can start to send them, because I have to send it out. I have to still follow protocol. As long as you stay in your arrangement, then we can work through it. Okay. So basically, we just have a conversation, and as long as they stick to their arrangement, whatever that may be, we usually don't have any issues. I have a tenant right now that fell on hard times and is currently paying every 2 weeks. And we have no issues with it. Every 2 weeks, funds are received in the office, and we go forward and we process. But I still have to send out that notice, just in case we get to that point where, if we have to go to court, we'll already have something on record, which helps the attorneys, because now they don't have to fight. They just need to enforce what's already there. Yep.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you first about repairs. So, a leaky roof or electrical issue, plumbing issue, the physical condition of the property during this time. Let's say a tenant has a minor repair versus a hazardous or safety repair. Are you guys able to coordinate contractors? Let's say, there's electrical issue. How are you guys handling repairs right now on your properties?
That's a great question. It is a little bit difficult.
Okay.
Because a lot of contractors are not currently in commission. Number one, what was explained to me, and I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Shout out to my heat and cooling guy, Torrance. We had an in-depth conversation, because I said I needed a furnace repair completed for a tenant whose furnace went out. And he said, I would love to do it. He said, but unfortunately, I cannot do it because it is a liability issue. licensed HVAC technician, I'm gonna say, okay? He says, because if I walk into the house right now and disobey this order, then I am liable if this person gets sick, even though they may already be sick, or maybe they feel like I was feeling great until this heating and cooling guy came into my property and now I'm sick.
Right,
Okay?
right,
Because he disobeyed a state order being licensed through the state of Michigan, his insurance will not cover any of those claims because you disobeyed an order through the
right.
state of Michigan in which you're licensed. Okay? He said vice versa is that if they have symptoms but don't know and I get sick, I'm still not going to be covered by his liability insurance because of the fact that I still disobeyed an order and now I'm sick and could possibly, lose my life
Right.
and impel my family. So, after I had the conversation, I said, you know what? I didn't even think about it like that. Even as licensed realtors, we still want to show we're still out here. We're still working, unfortunately. I can say unfortunately, fortunately, but we're not thinking about the liability and harm that we can bring to our business and ourselves too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that was a great conversation, and now I understand. But it has been difficult finding contractors to go out. There are some people who are still working and will, but you got to hit the yellow pages and kind of see whom is able to handle it. And unfortunately, I had to call 7 different HVAC people to finally get one to go out and actually do the repair. So they were willing to take the risk. They were still licensed, but they were still willing to take the risk to go out and get it done.
Right.
But
So
again, it's about communicating with the tenants and letting them know right now what's happening, because they're not in our industry. They know that people are supposed to stay at home, but they know that they're also still supposed to receive some type of quality service. So it's just, again, staying in touch. Due to this pandemic, this virus is, contractors as well as myself are mandated to stay at home. But what I'm going to do is try my best to figure out a solution for you. I was at the point where I was on Home Depot's website, seeing if I can order and have it delivered, a heater, at least a couple of heaters, if I wasn't able to get the problem fixed. But I had to find a solution because that's my job, is to find a solution.
Right. So yeah, and that's because that's one of the things everybody's concerned with who's paying rent, who's not paying rent. But what about the tenant, protecting the tenant from possible, hazardous issues that may come up with the property? So what I'm hearing from some contractors is they will only go out if it's like something that's really a hazard or that's that's a safety issue. So like maybe you have an electrical issue where something is sparking and it may cause the house to burn down, or even some of the plumbing issues, they're not seeing those as hazardous unless it's like a plumbing issue where water is shooting out everywhere. But other than that, because you still have to protect, first and foremost, you have to protect the occupant and you have to protect the property. So, that's something that a lot of people haven't thought about. And from a property manager's perspective, and I'm glad you shared that story because we want contractors to be superheroes and they have liability plus they want to protect themselves as well.
Correct. And their families as well. So, I mean, like I said, when he broke it down that way, it made me see it totally different. And I was like, I appreciate that. I told him I appreciate that because everybody else I called was like, nope, not working. Call me back in May. Like, oh, okay. But he was like, this is the reason why. And I did not think about it because, again, being licensed, you have a lot more to lose. And you cannot or shall not, must not, however you want to put it, disobey a state order, especially when you're licensed under that state. So.
Right. And that brings up an issue too. We talked about somebody's health. So you have people that are not necessarily infected with the virus, but they have other health issues, right?
Correct.
So let's say you have someone that is on some type of machine or at home and their electrical is shot. that's a life-threatening,
It is.
situation where maybe the tenant may have to call a DTE or someone like that, or it's all about communicating, because under certain circumstances, there may be some exceptions made within government, and how you interpret the law, whether you're a contractor, property manager, still it's all about communication on what's going on, because we
Yeah.
still want to protect the tenants as well.
Yes.
So last but not least, before we leave, and this is something that a lot of investors are dealing with prior to COVID-19, especially in the city of Detroit, is the city rental registration. Now, I've been in real estate since 92, and as long as I can remember, the city had a rental registration. It just wasn't enforced as heavily, right?
Correct.
And they since added the lead-based paint abatement. Can you explain to both from a tenant perspective and from the owner perspective, the landlord, what exactly is required for the city inspection, for the inspection as well as the lead-based paint abatement?
Okay. So to register the property is free. You can go to the city website. I think it says detroitmi.gov. I don't want to say rental registration. Don't quote me on that, but it'll get you there close to it. And you can register the property as a vacant or a tenant occupied property. Okay. Let's start with the tenant occupied property. It's tenant occupied. You register the property, is now registered. Now you have to choose from one of the 3 city qualified or city approved inspectors to go out and to inspect the actual property. The one that I mostly use is the Detroit City Inspection Group. I want to say that's their name.
Okay.
And they go out. You schedule everything through their website online. It's $150 for a single family. Don't remember what the price is right now for a multifamily. We do a lot of single families right now. But it's $150 for a single family for them to come out to inspect the property using the City of Detroit codes, okay?
Right.
You're either gonna pass or fail. That's it. So they'll do the complete inspection. They'll email the inspection to the owner as well as the property manager if they're included in the submission form when you pay for it. If you pass, that's great. Then you can move forward to your lead abatement. So that's a separate company you have to hire to come out and do a conduct of lead. Okay. So let's just still back up. If it fails, you have to go through the report, correct all the items, call them back out to do the reinspection, and the reinspection is free for your second one. If they have to come out again, then it's $50 each time after your second reinspection. Okay. But the goal is to have it pass. Once it passes, again, you go and you schedule online, find a lead abatement, qualify through the City of Detroit, pay them the fee to have the property certified that there's no lead. If it is lead, you have to correct it, and it can vary. The cost can be from, as far as correcting it, maybe $1,000 to thousands of dollars. Okay, it just all depends.
Right.
That's again why you kind of want to work with a qualified property manager licensed, because most of the time we've been through these things and we can we work with other licensed contractors who can give us a little bit of heads up of what to look for, so it doesn't cost you thousands of dollars in the end because you don't know what they're going to look at. Okay, I'm not going to go into that. The protection for the tenant is that they're living in a safe and habitable environment for themselves as well as their children. The lead inspection really came about because during the, I'm gonna say mid 90s to early 2000s, there were hundreds of cases, especially in the city of Detroit, of children with lead poisoning. They were eating the paint chips from around windows, walls, etc. Okay, playing outside in the dirt. So that was part of the lead inspection. But it's a safety tool. It's just another safety tool for you and the owner to protect the tenant. How it protects the owner. The owner now has a property that is approved by the city of Detroit. It's registered. They've done an inspection. The city has said it has passed it. This is a safe and habitable home. They've done all the lead inspections. And then the last part is they've applied for their certificate of approval, okay, from the city. It's the final stamp that says, we certify that this house is safe and habitable for someone to occupy, okay?
Right.
Protects the owner because it'll give you lower insurance rates because it'll be less claims because you went through the proper arrangements. It also protects the owner because when you go to landlord-tenant court and they say there's all these different issues with the property, it's almost like a slam dunk, and it makes you not look like a slumlord when the attorney can say, well, Your Honor, they have a certificate of approval. If there are any repairs done, they're not major. They're probably less than $100 or less than $500, okay? There's no reason for this tenant not to get extra time to stay, because that's how court proceedings continue to keep going on also, because now the owner has not set them up with anything, the court, with any concrete evidence that this house is not the way that the tenant says that it is, you know? So it's protection on both sides, health and safety and a habitable place to stay for the tenant, liability, it lessens the risk and liability for the owner. So those are the two. And it also, the in-between party, which is the property management company also, because it lessens our risk of lawsuits and et cetera as well for our insurances as well. So
right.
That's how it does. So this tidbit, and I'm 1 second for this, vacant properties. Okay, and we have a lot of issues with vacant properties sometimes. You need to register your vacant properties as a vacant property, okay? It helps you because there's a database that the city of Detroit Police Department uses when you call to remove a squatter, okay? Which a lot of the property managers, I encourage you to go talk to the community officers in whatever districts it is that you manage, because they can tell you the protocol. So it's a system called Loveland that they use to see if a property has been registered at all, okay? If it's registered as a vacant property and you can provide them with all the necessary documents as your management agreement, the deed, owner information, your ID, etc., they can schedule with you to come legally remove somebody from the property because it's registered as a vacant property, and that says that nobody is supposed to be there. And most people get upset, because I've, including myself, has gotten upset with the police, you know, because we are under the understanding that if we call 911, they're supposed to be here and they're supposed to physically remove somebody from this property. Well, they're like, we have to have enough information in order to do so, and the confidence to know that if we're pulled into court, we can use some type of information, say, hey, they proved that it was vacant. They have maybe an eviction from a previous tenant. It's registered on Loveland as a vacant property. You know, we can now go through the proper steps of asking them to leave. They can't really go in, not kick down any doors and physically remove people from a house. That's not what they do. But they can be more aggressive in telling them you have to go. And if they have to go to that route of arresting someone for trespassing and for becoming a squatter, then they have enough information if they need to go forward to give to, if it goes that far, prosecution, things of that nature.
Right. So that's a good point, because there was a time where if it was a squatter in your property, you still had to go through the eviction process, right? And the police wouldn't necessarily interfere at all. They would just tell you, hey, you have to go to court. So you have a vacant property. And this happened a lot when we were doing a lot of bank foreclosures.
Yes,
people would just move into properties, or some scammer would be like, hey, you want to rent this property? And people would move in, and we show up a day later like, hey, this is a bank-owned property. We would call the police and they couldn't do anything. Nope. So we would do the eviction and start all over again. So that's good to know that the police can assist with squatters, but you have to have the proper documentation.
Correct.
Maybe you show that, hey, I just evicted somebody. And I've seen this happen where you evict somebody and 2 days later they broke in and moved back into the property.
Correct. But if you follow the right legal channels and you have your order of eviction and writ, that's good for 56 days. So if they break back in tomorrow, you can have them physically removed from the property.
Right. Yep. So, and speaking of city inspections, so Detroit is not the only one. I know Redford has one, Warren. There's several other cities. So if you are a landlord or tenant, you want to make sure you contact that city and find out what their rental registration requirements
All of them
are.
have it. Each
Yeah,
city has it. I'll tell you one thing, what I learned.
right.
Redford and East Point are aggressive.
Yeah.
And they are writing owners tickets for not getting these properties registered, not having inspections, and they're following through. And they will charge
Mm-hmm.
you with a misdemeanor if you do not comply with the city registration. They will charge the owner, they will charge the property manager, whomever, all of the above, to
Right.
make sure that these properties are managed. Now, Detroit hasn't gotten that aggressive, but I see in the future that it will be.
Right. So one thing too with so let's say if a tenant is in the property, right, and the property is not currently registered as a rental property, and the landlord hasn't done so, what should the tenant do, if anything, or what would you recommend?
The Usually, I would say the tenant usually knows who to contact, the city of Detroit,
Right.
and then it will usually more likely go to the blight department, and
Okay.
then they'll come out and assess you the blight tickets for non-registration of the property. Was it unlawful I can't say it right now, occupancy of a dwelling. It's like
Right.
3 tickets that they'll issue you right, issue the owner unfortunately right away. The tenant is to basically just say, hey, I called the city and go from there. Um,
Right.
Rental payments, even though you are calling the city and you feel like things are not going well, that property's not registered, tenant, and people are gonna hate me for this, but I gotta protect the tenants
No,
too.
so hold on. Let me stop you here because I know where you're going. Everything I do is real life, right?
Mhm.
When I'm recording, interviewing people, because we have to protect the tenant
Correct.
and the landlord. And if the landlord knows what the law is, then that protects the tenant. And if the tenant knows what the law is, it puts the landlord in a situation where they have to do what they're supposed to do. So
Correct.
everybody has to play fair between the landlord and tenant, and we need both parties to know exactly what's required. So
I
go
agree.
ahead and say what you were going to say.
So this is the thing. If you are a tenant and you are living in a property that is unregistered or that you just feel like you're having issues with, the key is not to not pay rent and withhold the money. You have to put that rental payment in escrow. You have to put it in escrow.
Can you
There
explain
are
what put in escrow is? Because I have a lot of people that think, oh, I'm just going to not pay my rent for however long until the issue is resolved, and then I'm going to pay it. So explain what escrow is from a tenant perspective.
from a tenant perspective, escrow is a special account, number one, that's been created within the 36th District Court and is available at any of the kiosks at the grocery stores where you would pay your DTE bill. Majority of them are at places like Northwest Activity Centers, so some of the activity centers around the city of Detroit. There is a third party that does not represent you or the owner, and it's a special kind of account. So, for instance, if I'm a tenant, I'm having an issue with repairs or anything with my landlord, property manager, I have to visit one of these kiosks, deposit the amount of rent that I would have paid in on time, still within that month, I'm gonna say, and keep my receipt, which they'll print you out a receipt, email your receipt, and then you'll keep doing that each month until it's been resolved. Majority of the time, if it has not been resolved and you are not paying rent per se to that landlord or property manager, they will then go ahead with the eviction process. Once you get to court, the courts can pull up this special escrow account that they hold, and you can also provide them with your receipts via, you want to make sure you bring physical receipts because you can't bring your phone in. So if you have an email, you got to print it out. You can provide them with this receipts to say, Your Honor, I'm a responsible tenant. I pay my rent every month. may not necessarily be on time, but I pay my rent, and here it is in escrow. All I'm asking for is this owner to do X, Y, and Z, whatever the repairs are, whatever you would like to see done, as long as it's reasonable, okay? But long story short is that is how you as a tenant can protect yourself, because you're showing the responsibility of, I have the ability to pay, I want to pay, but in order for me to pay, I need these items to be completed. So that is the secret to most tenants that do not comply with that. They figure, I'll just hold on to my money, and then when I get to court, I'll fight you, and I'll win because this house is terrible, it's not registered, and this and this and that. Well, you've already kind of made yourself kind of look bad because you haven't paid, nor have you made a good faith. It's all about good faith. Everything in this business, especially real estate, is good faith.
Right.
Good faith estimate, earnest money deposit, something of saying that if you're willing to do this, I'm willing to do this. So tenants, make sure that you at least put the money in escrow if you're going to do any challenges. Even if you plan to even vacate the property, just put the money in escrow. In the event, if you're going back and forth with court, people say, well, what happens with my money? Your money will stay there until a ruling has been issued by the courts saying, okay, this owner seems as such they're not going to do these repairs. You have 10, maybe 20, or even 30 days to vacate. We'll release your money once you've vacated the property to you. Or the owner has 30 days to do the repairs and get the house registered with the city of Detroit, have a city inspection completed, pass it. Once they pass the city inspection, then we'll release the funds to the owner that's owed to them for rental payments. So again, it's a third party. An escrow account is usually held by a third party that doesn't represent the owner or the tenant. They're just here to hold the funds until you and the tenant, or to the property manager or whomever, can work out the situation. Pretty much.
So this eliminates, because the reason I asked that is because there's a lot of times where, let's say you got a door that's broke or a window, whatever the case may be, whatever the repair is, and the tenant says, I'm not going to pay until you come fix this, right? As the landlord. And the landlord says, I'm going to fix it, but you're still obligated to pay. Obligated to pay doesn't necessarily mean you're obligated to pay the landlord at that time, but you are still obligated to either pay the landlord or put the funds in escrow until the issue is resolved. Because what happens in most cases is the landlord comes out, say 20 days later, and make the repair, and now they're demanding their money. And unfortunately, some people just use that as an excuse to not pay rent. And when that time comes, now they don't have the rent money to pay. So now they're in court for non-payment of rent. So the escrow way is a way of putting the money somewhere so that when the issue is resolved, it can be paid to the landlord. If the issue is not resolved, the tenant can receive their money back.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And I know we can go on forever, but I just got one more thing that I do want to add as far as with it, because it seems like we defend the owners, landlords more. Here's one more thing for tenants. If you get a notice, please communicate with your property manager or the owner before it's sent to the attorney and before the attorney sends it to the court. Okay? And the reason why I say this is because once a court case number is issued, that is in public records. So I get a lot of people that tell me, I've never been evicted from a property. I've been a great tenant. I always pay my rent on time, but the owner wanted the property back. They demand for possession, but it's not for money. It's just for the actual property. Okay. Most of the time, well, not say most, the owner, management company, landlord, whatever title, is supposed to send out a 30-day notice. You should have 30 days to vacate the property. If you cannot vacate in 30, you have to give a reasonable time. Once they send that 30-day notice or any of those notices to the court and they issue that case, that is now in public records, which can hurt you, regardless of if you owe money or not. And I've had several tenants that come to me and have told me their situations. And when I pull their applications, it does show that it has an eviction. And they said, but I don't owe any money because they just wanted the house back. I understand that. But a lot of property managers, property management companies use an automated underwriting technique, okay? They're not really physically pulling reports. It's a system that has parameters that's set up, and if it says you cannot have no evictions, it will automatically kick you back as being declined for a place, okay? Some people like myself, I look at the entire report. Prior to me being in real estate, I was in mortgages, so your credit report or report will tell a story and it'll give you information. If it was demand for possession, $0, I knew it was just possession only. They only wanted the property back. They weren't looking for any money. If it has a money judgment, it'll say that as well. But what I'm just telling the tenants is this: keep in communication. Some people say, I want to go to court. Sometimes you don't, because if you plan on moving and you want to move to a different property and you're unhappy, I suggest that you do that before you get to court and just move. Because of the fact that if you try to apply for somewhere else and someone has filed a court case against you, it's going to be even harder for you to find a different place to live or find a place at a decent rate, because now which you might have qualified for a less security deposit is doubled because the system now sees you as a risk, even though you paid your rent at your previous place on time. So that's just my little information I want to tell people, is that once that court case number is generated, you are now in the system and it's going to pull up from somewhere showing that you have an eviction.
Right, and that's I'm glad you actually brought that up, because we get a lot of tenants that are calling us to lease properties, and we ask the same question: hey, have you been evicted before? And they say, no, I haven't been evicted, but then this information is showing up on their application. You also brought up a good point, because a lot of people don't understand a legitimate property management company, and even some of your professional landlords that are running good businesses, they're going to ask for an application, and they're going to have a qualification process as if you were applying for a mortgage.
Correct.
So as a tenant, if you can avoid even going to court or having any paperwork filed in court, that's going to be your best option, because that's going to follow you around from application to application. And another thing, people are paying, as tenants, you're paying $25 and $50 per application sometimes, and then you're getting denied, and they're not telling you right away. So by the time you find out, you've already applied for another place.
Correct.
And it's a repeating cycle.
And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. Yep. And I definitely I've had consultations with people that have called me and, like, you know, they just kind of vent to me about what they've been going through. And I said, I definitely understand, you know, and if it's any way that I can assist, I will, you know. And my thing is, they're like, well, can you let me know what's there? Well, you got to pay my $35 application fee, unfortunately, because they charge me. So unfortunately, I got to charge you. But in the event, I can at least go over, because I actually pull the detailed report. But again, it depends on your position in the company or your ability. A lot of larger firms don't give the authority for a leasing agent to actually see why the application was denied. It just says that it was declined, and it may give a specific reason, previous eviction. And they can't pull, they don't have access to pull the actual report. Maybe their manager does, maybe they don't. But regardless of the fact, they just know that you're not approved for it, and they move on to the next applicant. But that's something I really would like tenants to know, because you can kind of stop or halt that process of going to court with communication with and with the property manager, owner, landlord, and saying, hey, I got your 30-day notice. Can you give me 10 days to be out? And you got to stick to your word. If not, I have to file this. I have to file this summons, and we have to go to court if you're not willing to keep your end of the bargain, you know. So
right. So let me ask you this too, and this is coming back to during lockdown and managing properties. What are you guys doing as far as your vacant properties? How are you guys handling that?
With the vacant properties right now, we're just kind of Well, first of all, we recommend that most of them are secured properly, which we use some type of shield system, either DAWs, VPS. I
Okay.
highly always recommend any owners to use that. And not
Okay.
100% proof, but I'm gonna say at least give it a 90% rating, okay? If somebody
Right.
wants to get in, they're gonna get in. But that's number one. We try to make sure that they are secured. And then we try to make sure that we put them on rounds. At least go every other day to ride past just to make sure the house is still standing because a lot can happen within 24 hours.
Right.
Um, at this moment, we cannot show any properties.
Exactly.
So it is all showings are on hold. I mean, unless somebody wants to, they can still apply for it because it's still on the website. It's still on the other one, probably on Zillow too, because I use property where it's on Zillow. And if someone would
Mhm.
like to apply for the property, they can still do so. But I cannot show you the property at the moment until this order has been lifted.
Right. So let's walk through this process. So a potential tenant sees a property on Zillow, and most people are not able to move right now anyway. So let's say, I want to move by May 15th. I can actually see the property. You probably have photos on Zillow, correct?
Mhm.
Or online or on your website. And they can do their application, they can get approved. Can you send them a lease agreement?
You can send them a lease agreement. You can
Okay,
send them a lease agreement. They can sign a lease agreement. They can sign a lease agreement. They can move into the property. They can do whatever they like. I mean, you're not supposed to, but
right,
I just can't leave my home or I can't leave my office or whatever to show it to you.
right.
Yep.
So if I'm a tenant, I go on your site and I see a property I like, and I say, hey, I'm interested, and you have some online platform where I can apply.
Yes.
Okay, so I can contact you and apply. You call me back and you say you approve, and I say, hey, I want to move in after lockdown, and we schedule the lease agreement. We sign a lease agreement and we put the move-in date maybe May 15th or May 20th or whatever, right? So as a tenant, I'm already in place. I have a place to move and I'm set, and I don't have to worry about May 1st, now I'm jumping into the market with everybody else that's running out last minute to look for a home.
Correct.
I'm already set and I know where I'm moving,
Correct. Now let's
right?
just add to that too. Some owners, property managers may also ask you for some sort of deposit. So
Right,
it may either be the security deposit, it may be some type of refundable deposit. Let's
right,
put that out there too,
right,
because it should be some type of refundable deposit. Let's say May 15th come, you finally see the house, and it's not what the pictures look like anymore, or it never was. Okay,
right,
then now you need your money back.
right,
So yeah, you want to put down some type of deposit. Most of the time, the lease is not signed until the day that they're going to move in.
right.
So May 15th is the day that you probably should be doing your walkthrough, and at the same time, if you're satisfied, doing your signing your lease at the same time.
Right.
But you do want to do the
And
application, and you can also leave a deposit.
okay. So let's say I visit your site and as the tenant, and you have several properties I like, and I just say, hey Marcus, I just want to apply to make sure I can get approved
Hmm.
based on my credit, my eviction history, and things of that nature. And now I'm all set. So I'm already a potential tenant, and you may end up having more properties come May 1st or May 15th.
Correct.
And now, are you going to call me back and say, hey, here's our inventory? What day are would you like to schedule showings after lockdown?
Correct. So my
Okay.
thing is, and let's put it out here like this. With our company, only pay one application fee, and if you are approved, you're approved for any property based upon your rental rate and your income. Okay.
Right.
So if you're in a basis of you qualify for to pay up to $800 a month, anything within that range, you are free to pick and choose from. Okay.
Right.
So yes, during that time, if more properties are become available, I do have a tendency to call people and say, hey, I got a property that's, you know, equivalent to what you've already interested in. Would you like to see it once the market opens up, or would you be interested in it? But yeah.
Right. So So in other words, there can still be some business conducted. It's just that you can't physically go out to the properties to show the property. But if someone has plans to move maybe in May or June, they can still contact you and communicate and say, here's my plans. I want to do an application now, and we'll conduct the actual business later and do the lease agreement and all of that later.
Correct. And the thing
Okay.
about it is you can always send them, and I'm a real bit advocate on education and comprehension of
Right.
understanding of what's happening. So you're a prospect, you apply, you are approved, you want to move forward with this property, but we can't physically go to see it. But what I can do is I can still draft the lease for the tentative date that we feel like you're going to be able to move in, and I can email it to you to review it.
Okay.
And that is a huge thing that I always want tenants, buyers, whomever I work with, is to review the information. So therefore, if we're doing it today or by the 15th of April, you have 30 days to read this 8, 9, 10-page lease and understand what it is that you're agreeing to. So that May
Right.
15th come, you're like, where do I sign? And therefore, we can also hash out any discussions. Because what about if I put something in there where there are no pets allowed, but you have a dog? I need information about your dog. Is it registered with the city of Detroit? That's another caveat most people don't know.
Yeah.
It is.
Can you explain that a little bit about pets? Because I know some cities wanted to ban pit bulls for, each city is different. But can you explain that a little bit about the
Yes.
pets?
It's a case by case basis, owner by owner, portfolio by
Mhm.
portfolio. But specifically, if there are no pets allowed in your lease and you get a pet without permission, it's a violation, which can also send you to court because you're
Right.
violating a term of your lease. And also, just a little bit, it's more to a lease than just the monetary part. You have the provisions and conditions that are in this contract that can also be violated. They can send you to court and also get you evicted. It's not also the fact that you're just not paying the monetary. So we're going to leave that at that. But specifically about pets, again, if it is not a registered um, pet under the American Disability Act,
Hmm.
then, and I have in my lease or in the lease that is no pets allowed, then with those exceptions of those animals, you should not have a pet. If you have a pet, number one, the pet should be listed on the application. You're more likely going to pay some type of pet deposit. It's usually range, I'm going to say, starting from maybe $100 going up, depending upon the property. The pet should be registered with the city of Detroit. You're supposed to register your dogs and animals. Well, I don't know dogs specifically. They definitely wanted you to do or highly recommended pit bulls, but all dogs, I'm gonna say all animals should have been registered. But I know dogs specifically, since we're talking about that, should be
So
registered with the city.
you probably won't be leasing the property to Joe Exotic anytime soon, right?
No. Not to my knowledge, at least. They usually don't learn until after they get there. You're like, where you get a tiger from?
Right, right.
No, but anyway, register the pets, and then they should be up to date on all their shots, and you should have that information as well as a property manager, landlord, because again, it's still a liability. If this dog gets loose, this pet gets loose, and it injures someone, you want to be able to protect yourself and say, "Hey, I did know about it. They were approved for it, and this is the information they submitted to me saying that this pet was free of any diseases or anything like that." So,
Right.
now, will I say that most property managers or all property managers follow that exact protocol? Probably not. But let's put it like this. We want to make sure that we are protecting ourselves as much as possible. Again, it goes back to the city of Detroit registration. Most people think it was a new thing, like you said, but you've been around since '92. It's always been there, but hasn't been enforced.
Right.
And that's the thing. All of these things are not new. It's always been on the city charter. It's always been a requirement. It's just that during all of our economic downturns, it's kind of been shied away from. But in the future, you can look for that as well, with definitely registering your pets at your property as well.
Right. And you spoke about the Disabilities Act. So people that have like service animals and things like that, you can't discriminate against people with, because some people have like, what is it, service, they're doing
Service
like,
animals and comfort animals.
yeah, yeah, comfort animals, right? So a comfort animal may be a cat, it can be a snake, right?
Mhm.
If they have a doctor's prescription.
Correct.
And so some people, I think they're doing like small horses or donkeys or something like that, I
Correct.
heard about. So
Correct.
just imagine if you're a landlord and someone wants to move a small horse into your property, like how does that work? So it's good to really know the law from both a landlord and a tenant perspective as well. Also, speaking of people with disabilities, they are allowed to modify the property,
Yes.
correct? But
Yes.
the requirement is they have to put it back in the condition it was prior to them moving in. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That is correct.
So, and the reason I mention that is because like people that are in wheelchairs, they have, the doorway has to be extended and widened for them to have easy access to go from room to room, maybe a handicap ramp and things of that nature. So there are a lot of landlords that still don't understand the laws in regard to that. So let me ask you this. This is another elephant that I need to tackle
Hmm.
is medical marijuana and marijuana in general. So um, the tenants lighten up, you know what I'm saying, and they not prescribed anything. Then you have your tenants that have whatever the doctor requirements are, and they say they're complying, they're a patient. What are you seeing in the market in regards to that? Or have you had a chance to deal with any of those issues?
I'll be honest with you, I have not had a chance to deal with any of those issues. I'm still learning about that.
Okay.
I'm still learning the requirements and documentation that's required if they are prescribed by a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's one of the things. They have to have their medical marijuana license card,
Right.
um, but which seem to be everybody has. But I mean, it's kind of that's a really tricky type of situation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I can ask is that they or request. I'm not even gonna say ask. Is just request that they respectfully try to designate an area where they, smoke, and maybe not throughout the entire house because I mean it can, cause damage. But I mean, at the end of the day, I can't. There's nothing I can really do about it, per se.
Right.
For those who are doing it illegally and as a recreation, um, they say it's legalized and things of that nature. Um, to a certain extent, but that's a very slippery slope right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Because
like you have to kind of take each by case situation. Um, but let's just put it out there. If we're being honest, there's a lot of other things that people violate in their lease that, you know,
right.
that you can go after versus trying to do marijuana.
Right. Because most landlords are not really concerned about what people are doing from a recreation standpoint. It's more or less like the biggest concern we're seeing is people are trying to start like grow houses in the
Correct.
basement. And that type of equipment and what it takes to grow will damage a house. I
It
mean, the
will.
amount of mold I've seen in some properties is ridiculous. So there are clauses in most leases that cover the landlord that says you're restricted from doing those things.
Yes, we
But
have it in ours. It's for residential quiet enjoyment use only. No type of business pretty much can be ran out of this establishment.
right,
So yeah, it's in there. But like I said, recreational use is nothing we can really do. But I also put in what we put in our leases is that we're doing an inspection twice a year, a walkthrough.
right,
So unless you know that we're coming in advance, I mean, which we usually do because we can at least give you 24 to 48 hours. I usually try to do 48 hours, and you're able to remove all that stuff without me even noticing within
right.
48 hours. And can I say, like,
Now, one of the things I did when I went to Con Ed and they spoke about it was the recreational use. And the way it was explained to us, and maybe, you know, when I interview with an attorney, they can explain it better. But they said, like, you can have the brownies and all that good stuff. You can even smoke in your own home if it's a single family dwelling
Mm-hmm.
for recreational use. But if you live in a multi-unit dwelling, you cannot smoke because it's interfering with the other tenants' quiet use and enjoyment.
Yeah.
So it's not only important for the landlord and property manager to know the law, it's also important for the tenant to understand and know the law. So yeah, that's something, you know, I'm gonna actually interview an attorney with that
Good.
specific issue in mind so we can get some clarity to it. Because the whole idea with all this being said is, you know, as a landlord and a tenant, we both want to stay out of court,
Correct.
right?
We do.
Yeah.
And we want to minimize our fees and have an enjoyable time as far as working with each other. You know, that's all it
Right,
is we're all still a community, and we're
right,
all a part of a community. And we just want to make sure that everybody is safe and habitable and successful in all realms.
right,
And yeah, that's why we all have to stay educated on what it is that's what's happening out here. And that's why I tell a lot of the owners, you know, and I can speak for myself and a lot of us in this profession, is that we do a lot of continuing education, research, polling, like to just try to make sure that we are standing compliant with all the laws that come out almost on an hourly basis. It seems like, not just with the virus, but just in general. Um,
right.
GMAR has been a great help for me because them sending me emails about certain issues and cases they receive, and I get a chance to read it. Really helps me expand my business also.
Right. That's good to know. So is there anything else that you want to share with?
Now, I think I've given away all the tricks and trades right now. I'm probably gonna get a couple
Right.
of emails like, "Why would you say that?" No.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, like I said, any of these videos I'm doing, I'm just being real with people.
Yeah,
You know, some people don't want you to give away, you know, the trade secrets and all of that, but the mass public, the general population needs to know.
they do.
Um,
Like I said, and
um,
my thing is, I think I spend majority of my time with tenants educating about anything and everything, even if it's on a end. Like I had a lady that was extremely upset. She didn't think that how we were managing the property was fair as a, you know, as a tenant. Um, and I said, I understand that. And she's like, well, I'm going to move. And I said, I respect that. I don't.
right,
That's not an issue. I respect that you feel your feelings are valid as far as when it comes to your feelings. So let's do this. Let's have a conversation about when you expect to move. Or is there anything that we can do that's reasonable to make you stay? If it's no, well, let's have a conversation about you moving. It's okay. People move on. I say, but
right.
here's some information that you should know. It is tough for renters now. It is very tough to find for renters. They,
Mm-hmm.
most people have an application fee. They want all of your documents. They want names and information of everybody in your household. If they're over 18, they may have to pay an additional fee on your application. So maybe 35, but if it's anybody that's 18 or over, it's additional $15 for just the application, plus all of their information. Okay.
Right,
So now they want you're approved. You want 1.5 months security deposit. Most people ask for 1.5 months security deposit, first month, or depending upon your approval through the system, they may ask for an additional amount of money, maybe 1.5 months down for your rental payment. I
right.
mean, you got a $200 cleaning fee. And my thing is, if you look at some of the stuff that's on Realcom, you're like, it's gonna cost me almost $5,000 to move into an $800 property. You know, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's a tough market out here. You know, and like I tell people, if you can definitely find someone that's not charging you an application fee. You can definitely find someone that is not charging you a security deposit. But majority of the time, when you are looking for, I'm sorry, seeking the easy way out, lack of a better term, it usually doesn't benefit you because you fall victim to the people knocking on your door saying that you're not supposed to be here,
Mm-hmm.
um, the property never being completed. A lot of people moving into properties that have not been finished and they're not going to be. Um, all type of issues. I mean,
Right.
most people, if it have something worthwhile, you're gonna pay for it. That's the thing.
Right.
If it's too good to be true, kind of look at it as not being true. And that's just a protection for a lot of the tenants. And I tell them, you just have to be careful out here. You know, a lot of the
Yeah, because
times people, you know,
yeah,
it's just that hard.
because we both seen all the scams where somebody's living in a property and they
Yeah.
say, hey, I rented this property from such and such, and I paid them cash, and they said they were going to come back and do the repairs, and they didn't ask for a security deposit or an application, and you know, those type of things. We found it on Craigslist, and they said
Yeah.
we could move in Saturday, and they were going to come back Monday, and all,
Yeah.
all that, and it's sad.
You know,
So
and
yeah.
like I said, I tell people a lot of times, just you got to do your homework, and I try to offer my assistance as much as possible, even if it's not a property, because I hate for people to lose. People have saved, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
saved their money to try to find a decent place for them and their children, and now you're in a position where you have to do the same again. You got to find somewhere else to go, and you don't get that money back. That's the thing.
Right.
They don't. You don't. There's no way for you to recuperate that money. Again, that's why as a tenant, you want to do your research and find out if they are a licensed real estate broker, or at least even if they are a licensed real estate agent. That's some type of recourse where you can go to the Michigan website and search their name and
Mm-hmm.
see how you can get in contact with them somehow. If it's not them
Right.
directly with the phone number they gave you, is at least with the broker that's going to be in business.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Marcus. So
Right.
how can people contact you that are looking for, let's say I own some properties and I don't want to be bothered with tenants. I just want somebody else to manage them. Or if I'm a tenant and I need a place to stay and I want to deal with somebody that has a good reputation and I'm not going to get screwed over in the process.
All right. Well, my name is Marcus Twyman. The name of the company is Opulent Realty Team. That's Opulent, Opulent. And we are at www.opulentrealtyteam.com, which also has our information on the website. Our phone number is 586-422-0202. And you can also follow us on Facebook at Opulent Realty Team on Facebook. Instagram is opulent_realty_team on Instagram.
All right, sounds good. So, and you also help investors find the properties too that you're going to manage for them?
Correct.
Okay.
We
All right,
do
that's
full
good.
acquisition. So if you want owners who, or landlords or buyers who want to find properties, we can manage the property. I'm also a notary as well.
Okay.
And then we offer some other credit services too through FES.
All right. And the reason I asked about you finding, because, you know, I deal with a lot of investors myself, but sometimes, because they're buying properties and sometimes I'll give them advice on what's a good deal and what's the bad deal, and they're going to hold it for cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
But in some cases, if they've already selected a property manager, I usually work with the property manager and the client to say, hey, this property manager is going to be dealing with you after the acquisition. So let's incorporate the property manager in there and let's build a team on what's
Correct.
the best properties for you,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
But
Thank you for saying that. That's really important because a lot of times we do get slammed afterwards. We're like, oh yeah, I bought a property. Here, you need to manage that. Wait, hold on. Where is it? You know, what's
yeah,
the rental income? You know, I even tell a lot of people who, because again, some of my owners were not my buyers. And again, I say that it's okay. But at least you say incorporate me in the process because I can assist in the instance of verifying if this is a valid lease or not, because
mm-hmm.
I've come across that where there have been sellers who have created leases for tenants, and that's not the rental rate that they were paying to get the
Right.
deal closed to make the numbers make sense.
So
Okay.
let's back up for a moment. So basically what you're saying, because they purchased a property that already had a tenant in it. So basically they brought what we call a turnkey property.
Correct.
And you're saying that they brought this property with the assumption that, hey, the tenant is paying $900 a month. The lease is a month-to-month lease or it's a one-year lease. And you as a property manager, you come in and verify all of this information,
Correct.
correct?
And they say, well, how can you verify a lease? Majority of the time, it's through a signature. And again, when you are acquiring a property, you're asking for the rental ledger, which should be legible. Most people write it on a piece of paper or something like that. I mean, again, if it's owner occupied, it's a possibility, but okay. You want the lease agreement, you need the application, you need the tenant's ID, and maybe they don't want to supply them with the social security card until after you close, but you at least need the ID. I mean,
Right.
those are things that you get during the period, during your due diligence period. And that's how you can match it up. If the signature on the ID is mostly close to those signatures on the lease, then you kind of get a feeling, but you can tell when I've been in this business long enough, so I know when a lease is going to be valid or not.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to hold you up, but those are some of the identifiers that I can help you with. And even with selling agents, I'm not trying to kill your deal because I don't want nobody to kill mine. But I mean, if the numbers don't make sense, then it's kind of like I have to inform my client that it doesn't make sense. You know, um, Vacant properties in specific areas, the prices that they're paying, things of that nature. So just incorporate us because
Right.
we need all this information too prior to you closing, because sometimes I have to contact the title companies in order to get the closing package. Because even though I'm going to manage your property, I still need the deed to the property. I need to know if you have a water escrow with that title company, because once we acquire the property and we get the water bill and we review it and it's nothing being paid, I need to figure out who do I go to, who do I contact.
Right.
We need to know when we're setting up your property management account through Propertyware, if you have received the security deposit and prorated rent or first month's rent already, so that we'll make sure that the tenant's ledger is correct as well as your accounting ledger, your owner ledger is correct, because some people have the security deposit and the proration of rent credited on the HUD statement, and that's different when it comes to our accounting practices. We can't give you credit for that because that wasn't money that we actually received.
Right.
So again, to make sure that our accounting is correct and make sure that your ledger is correct and the tenant's ledger is correct, I need that closing statement to see if you were credited for that information, for that money on your closing statement. If you have not been credited for it, whom do I contact in order to get the security deposit and the proration? And again, even from, like you said, from the beginning standpoint of even the purchase agreement, because a lot of times, and selling agents are moving fast, we all move fast, we forget to incorporate that, that they're either supposed to credit it to the HUD statement, or after closing, a check for the security deposit and the proration of rent based upon when they close should be submitted to the property manager and or owner. So that'll kind of help. I can look for small things as the selling agents moving forward. I can be in there and chime in and say, hey, what about the security deposit and prorated rent? Oh, thank you, Marcus. I totally forgot to put that in the PA. Let me send an addendum if it's already been signed, or let me send it now so they can sign it before they accept the offer. That can help us all out.
Right.
Because it's hard to try to get money from somebody after they've closed, the seller gotten their money. They're that wasn't in the contract. You're like, ooh.
Exactly, because once the tenant vacates the property, they want their security deposit back. And if it wasn't handled right at closing, the new owner could be on the hook for it.
Correct.
And so, yeah, that's good stuff, man. So, again, I want to thank you for this interview. This video will be available on all social media platforms. So, again, this is Reginald Perryman with regiusrealestate.com. I want to thank Marcus for coming on.
Thank you.
Please contact Marcus if you're looking to invest in the Detroit area and you need property management, or if you are a tenant and you're looking to rent a property. Right now, during the crisis, we're limited to what we can do, but there's still ways to do business. Maybe you're an investor, you have several properties that are not performing well. You can contact Marcus now and go over the details and come up with an action plan for after lockdown. All right?
All right.
All right. Hold on one second. I'm just going to pause the recording button.